What happens when a family reunion becomes a competition, and the only prize is an old man's final goodbye? This is the story of Harold Whitmore and the family who forgot what they had until it was too late. Welcome, Whispering Bee family. When Harold Whitmore's doctor mentioned the phrase estate planning during a routine checkup, he did not think much of it. He was 83. These conversations were normal, expected, even. But what he did not expect was to see that same phrase 3 days later in his email inbox, copied accidentally from his son Richard's account to the office administrator. Harold stared at the screen for a long time that afternoon. The email was brief, clinical. Richard wanted to know about his father's assets, the value of the house on Maple Street, investment accounts, life insurance policies, the kind of questions that came with spreadsheets attached. Harold closed his laptop slowly and sat in the silence of his living room. The grandfather clock ticked. Outside, leaves were starting to turn. He had lived in this house for 52 years, raised 3 kids here, buried his wife from here, and now someone was calculating its worth in an email chain. He did not call Richard. He did not confront him. He just filed the information away in that careful part of his mind that had learned, over 8 decades, that people reveal themselves more through actions than explanations. 2 weeks later, his daughter Elaine showed up with dinner. Elaine Whitmore Carrington had not visited her father unannounced in 4 years, maybe 5. She had a calendar system, neat and color-coded. 3rd Sunday of every month was dad duty, Christmas, his birthday, maybe Easter if her husband Brad's family did not have plans first. But here she was on a random Tuesday, carrying a casserole dish wrapped in a towel. "I made your favorite," she said, breezing past him into the kitchen. "That baked ziti you always loved." Harold followed her slowly. Elaine moved through his kitchen like she was doing a home inspection. She opened cabinets, peered into the refrigerator, frowned at the outdated appliances. "You really should update this space, Dad. These countertops are from the 90s. 1987, he said. Your mother picked them out. Elaine set the casserole on the stove, missing the point entirely. "Well, granite would really brighten things up. I know a contractor." She stayed for an hour, asked about his health, his medications, whether he had thought about power of attorney. The questions felt rehearsed, memorized from some article titled How to Talk to Your Aging Parent. When she left, Harold checked the casserole. It was still slightly warm, but the aluminum bottom had a sticker. Mama Rosa's Italian Kitchen, 5th Street. He had driven past it 100 times. She had not made it. She had bought it and transferred it to her own dish. It was a small lie, meaningless maybe, but it stuck with him. The next Tuesday she was back, then Thursday, then Sunday, each time with food she claimed to have made, each time asking gentle questions about his plans, his paperwork, his thoughts about the future. By the 3rd week, she had stopped asking permission before arriving. She had a key made, started leaving notes on the counter about things that needed fixing, things that needed updating, things that needed to change. Harold watched her arrange fresh flowers in his dead wife's favorite vase, and something cold settled in his chest. Elaine was not visiting. She was staging. Richard Whitmore called his father at 8:15 every morning. Not 8, not 8:30, 8:15 exactly. The first week, Harold thought it was sweet. His son, busy with his consulting firm, still making time to check in. "How did you sleep, Dad?" "Fine." "Take your medications?" "Yes." "Eating okay?" "Fine." "Good, good. Listen, I have been thinking. Have you updated your will recently?" The conversations lasted exactly 7 minutes. Harold knew because he started timing them on the 4th day. 7 minutes, not 6, not 8. Richard had optimized even his filial duty. On day 9, Richard asked if Harold had considered selling the house. "It is a lot of space for one person, Dad, and the market is really strong right now. We could get you into a nice assisted living situation, something modern, with activities." "I do not need activities. I need my house." "I am just thinking ahead. Maintenance costs, property taxes, it adds up. We should be practical." Practical. Harold turned the word over in his mind after they hung up. When had his son become so practical that a childhood home was just a line item in a budget? Richard started visiting on weekends. He would arrive with his laptop, spreading papers across the dining room table. Financial documents, market analyses, comparisons of retirement communities. This one has a pool, he would say, pointing at a glossy brochure. And they do trips, wine tasting, casino nights. I do not drink wine, and I do not gamble. It is about the lifestyle, Dad. What Richard did not say, but Harold heard anyway, was that the lifestyle came with a price tag significantly lower than maintaining a 4-bedroom Victorian. What Richard did not say was that selling the house meant liquidity, immediate assets, something that could be invested, diversified, grown. Harold started letting the 8:15 calls go to voicemail some days. He would listen to them later. The concern in Richard's voice sounded increasingly like a script from a customer service training video. Your call is important to us. Please hold. The grandchildren. Harold had 5 grandchildren. Before his 83rd birthday, he could count on one hand the number of times they had voluntarily spent time with him in the past 5 years. Melissa, Elaine's daughter, was 24. She worked in marketing for a startup that seemed to change its business model every 6 months. She posted constantly on social media. Inspirational quotes, coffee cups, carefully curated images of a life that looked successful from the outside. She started showing up with her phone, already positioned for photos. Grandpa, sit right there. The light is perfect. She would arrange him like furniture. Move his hand here, tilt his chin there, smile more, less, more natural. The photos would appear online within minutes. Spending quality time with this amazing man, so grateful for family, blessed beyond measure. The visits lasted exactly as long as it took to get the perfect shot. 10 minutes, 15 on a slow day. Brandon, Elaine's son, was 21 and in his 3rd year of college, or maybe 4th. He had changed majors twice that Harold knew of. Currently it was business, or finance, something that sounded impressive at dinner parties. He came with questions that felt like interview prep. Grandpa, tell me about building wealth. What is your secret? There is no secret. I worked. I saved. But like strategy-wise, did you invest? Real estate? Stocks? I was a postal worker, Brandon. I had a pension. Brandon looked disappointed. He had been hopping for something more actionable, something he could apply to his own future portfolio. Richard's kids were younger, twins named Sophie and Ethan, barely 17. They came because they were told to, sitting on Harold's couch with matching expressions of boredom, scrolling through their phones until their father said it was time to leave. On Sophie's 3rd visit, Harold asked her about school. It is fine. What classes do you like? I do not know. They are fine. Do you have friends? Yeah. The conversation died there. She was not being rude exactly, just honest. She did not know him. He was her grandfather by genetics, not relationship. A stranger she was obligated to visit for reasons that had nothing to do with actually wanting to know him. And then there was the 5th grandchild. Maya. Maya Elizabeth Whitmore was 28 years old. She taught 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary, a public school 3 miles from Harold's house. She drove a 2012 Honda Civic that had 183,000 miles on it and made a grinding sound when she turned left. She had been coming to see Harold every Tuesday for 6 years. It started after her father died. Daniel, Harold's youngest son, had raised Maya alone after his wife disappeared when Maya was 9. He worked at the cement factory, double shifts most weeks, saving everything he could for Maya's college fund. The heart attack took him on a Wednesday. He was 46. Maya was 17. Harold paid for the funeral, paid for Maya's college, never mentioned it, never asked for thanks, just signed the checks and told her to focus on her studies. When she graduated and got her teaching job, Harold was the only family member who showed up. He sat in the back of the auditorium with a bouquet of supermarket flowers. Crying openly, when they called her name. After that, the Tuesday visits just happened naturally. Maya would stop by after work, still wearing her teacher clothes. Khakis, a cardigan, sensible flats. She would sit in the chair across from Harold and ask about his day. Not the performative kind of asking, the real kind, where she actually listened to the answer. Harold would tell her about the book he was reading, the birds he had seen at the feeder that morning, the news story that had bothered him. And Maya would listen without checking her phone, without glancing at the clock, without mentally calculating when she could politely leave. Sometimes she brought groceries, just the basics, milk, bread, eggs. She would put them away without announcement, restocking his refrigerator like it was the most normal thing in the world. Sometimes she fixed things, the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, the loose handle on the screen door, the drawer in the kitchen that always stuck. "I can call someone," Harold would say. "I am someone," she would answer, already looking for his toolbox. Most times she brought nothing but herself. They would sit and talk, or not talk, watch Jeopardy together, eat sandwiches, exist in the same space without needing to justify it. She never asked about money, never hinted at inheritance, never treated Harold like a resource to be managed or an investment to mature. She just showed up. Until suddenly, she could not. The shift. It started small. Maya arrived one Tuesday to find Elaine's car in the driveway. Strange. Elaine's visits were Sundays. She let herself in with her key. The living room was full. Elaine at the dining table with paperwork spread everywhere. Melissa on the couch, phone out, taking photos of Harold in his chair. "Oh, Maya," Elaine said, looking up with surprise that felt staged. "We did not know you were coming." "I come every Tuesday." "Yes, well, we have been handling some things for Dad. Estate planning, you know how it is." Maya did not know how it was. She had never discussed Harold's estate because it had never occurred to her to think about it. She stayed anyway, wedging herself into the suddenly crowded room. But the dynamic was different. Every conversation she tried to start with Harold was interrupted. Elaine needed him to look at a document. Melissa needed another photo. The air felt thick with territorial tension. When Maya got up to check Harold's medications, the weekly pill organizer she always filled on Tuesdays, Elaine intercepted her in the hallway. "I have got that covered now," she said, her smile bright and sharp. "You do not need to worry about it anymore. I have been doing it for 6 years. And that is so sweet, but we are his children. We should be handling these things." "I am his granddaughter." "Of course you are." Elaine's hand landed on Maya's shoulder, the touch somehow both gentle and dismissive. "But you have your own life. You're teaching. We do not want you to feel obligated." "I do not feel obligated. I want to be here. Still, maybe it is time to let us take care of him." The words were kind. The message was clear. "You are not needed anymore." Maya left early that night. Harold watched her go with an expression she could not read. She texted him later. "Is everything okay?" The response came an hour later. "Yes, sleep well." But nothing was okay. The Tuesday visits became impossible. Maya would arrive to find the house full. Richard's car, Elaine's SUV, sometimes both. The living room staged like a family gathering, everyone performing togetherness the moment she walked in. Conversations would pause when she entered. Eyes would flick to her and away. Someone would check their watch. The unspoken message was consistent. "You are interrupting." She tried calling ahead. Elaine would answer Harold's phone. "Dad is resting right now. Can I take a message?" The messages were never delivered. She tried texting. The responses became slower, shorter. Eventually, they stopped coming at all. One afternoon, she showed up unannounced, determined. Her key would not work. She stood on the porch, turning it again and again in the lock that no longer recognized it. Elaine opened the door after the third knock. The locks had been changed. "We had a security concern," Elaine explained. "Someone tried to break in last week. We had to rekey everything." "You could have given me a new key." We have been so busy, but I will get you one, I promise. The promise was never kept. Maya tried talking to Richard. She called his cell phone on a Saturday morning. He answered on the fourth ring, distracted. Richard, what is going on with Dad? I cannot reach him. He is fine. We are managing everything. I have always helped manage things. And we appreciate that. But Maya, you have to understand. Elaine and I are his legal next of kin. When it comes to medical decisions, financial decisions, we have responsibilities you do not. I am not trying to make decisions. I just want to see him. A pause. Then Richard's voice careful. Has Dad asked to see you? The question landed like a punch. What? I am just asking, because he has not mentioned you recently, and I do not want you to feel like you have to keep coming around if he is not asking for you. Maya's throat tightened. He would ask for me if you would let him. That is not fair. We are not keeping him from anyone. We are protecting him. From what? From stress, from confusion. He is 83, Maya. Too many people coming and going upsets him. I am not too many people. I am family. Richard's sigh was audible through the phone. Look, nobody is saying you are not family, but maybe you need to accept that your role here is different than you thought it was. The call ended shortly after. Maya sat in her car outside the elementary school, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Your role here is different than you thought it was. What did that mean? That 6 years of showing up counted for nothing. That love could be erased by a legal document. She wanted to fight, to show up at the house and demand to be let in, to call a lawyer, to make someone listen. But what would she fight for? The right to be present, the right to care about someone. You could not force those things. Either they were given freely or they were not given at all. So Maya did something that felt like giving up, but was actually self-preservation. She stopped trying. With Maya gone, Elaine moved quickly. She pulled Harold aside one Sunday after dinner. Just the two of them in the kitchen, while Richard corralled the grandchildren in the living room. Dad, I need to talk to you about something uncomfortable. Harold rinsed his plate, waiting. It is about Maya. Elaine's voice dropped to a confidential whisper. I have been noticing some things, concerning things. What things? Questions she has been asking. About your finances, about the value of the house. She wanted to know if you had updated your will recently. It was a complete lie. Maya had never asked about any of those things. But Elaine said it with such conviction, such carefully performed concern, that it landed with weight. She has always struggled with money. You know, Elaine continued. That teaching salary barely covers her rent, and I just worry that she might be looking at you as a solution to her problems. Harold's face was unreadable. Maya has never asked me for anything. Not directly, no. She is smarter than that. But Dad, think about it. Why else would she spend so much time here? She is a young woman. She should be out with friends, dating, building her own life. Instead, she is here every week, playing the devoted granddaughter. She cares about me. Does she? Or does she care about what you can leave her? The words hung in the air between them. Harold did not defend Maya. He did not argue. He just nodded slowly, his expression carefully blank. I appreciate you telling me, he said quietly. I hate having to say it. Elaine squeezed his hand. But we are your children, we have to protect you. From that conversation forward, everything changed. When Maya called, Harold's responses were brief, almost cold. I am busy right now. Can we talk later? Maybe, I will see. When she asked if she could visit, there was always a reason she could not. Richard will be here going over some things. Elaine is taking me to a doctor's appointment. I am tired, another time. Maya felt the distance like a physical thing, a wall going up brick by brick. She tried once more, a letter, handwritten, dropped in his mailbox. Grandpa, I do not know what happened, but I miss you. If I did something wrong, please tell me. I just want to understand. I love you. The response came 3 days later, a text message. Maya, I think it is best if we have some space right now. I am dealing with a lot, and I need to focus on family. She read it 5 times, trying to find some other meaning in the words. I need to focus on family. She was family, wasn't she? With Maya effectively removed, Richard accelerated his plans. He brought his attorney friend, Kevin Thompson, to the house on a Wednesday afternoon. Kevin was young, ambitious, the kind of lawyer who billed in 6-minute increments and saw every human interaction as a potential transaction. They sat at Harold's dining table, with documents spread between them. This is just a standard durable power of attorney, Kevin explained, his finger tapping the paper. It allows Richard to make financial and medical decisions on your behalf if you become incapacitated. I am not incapacitated, Harold said. Of course not. This is just precautionary, planning ahead. Harold read through the document slowly. His hands shook slightly, arthritis making the pages difficult to hold. This gives Richard access to all my accounts. Only if you cannot manage them yourself, Kevin said smoothly. It is for your protection. Protection from what? From predatory individuals. Elder abuse is more common than you think, Mr. Whitmore. People who befriend seniors, gain their trust, manipulate them into changing wills or signing over assets. I have not been manipulated. Richard leaned forward. Dad, we just want to make sure you are safe, that nobody takes advantage of you. Who would take advantage of me? A pause, then Richard carefully. We have noticed Maya spending a lot of time here. She is my granddaughter. She is also struggling financially, and she has been asking questions. Harold set the papers down. What kind of questions? About your estate, about the house. Kevin has seen cases like this before. Someone identifies an elderly person with assets, befriends them, slowly isolates them from their real family. Maya has not isolated me from anyone. Has she not? Richard's voice was gentle but insistent. When was the last time you saw Elaine without Maya being here? When was the last time we had a family dinner that did not revolve around her schedule? It was masterful gaslighting, rewriting history in real time. Harold looked at his son for a long moment. Then he signed the papers. Not because he believed them, but because he wanted to see how far they would go. Elaine's renovation dreams. With the power of attorney in place, Elaine felt emboldened. She started bringing contractors to the house, not to fix things, but to assess them. This kitchen could be completely gutted, one contractor said, taking measurements. Open it up to the living room. New cabinets, granite counters, stainless appliances. Probably $100,000, but it would add twice that to the property value. Harold listened from his chair as they discussed his home like he was not in it. The bathrooms are original, Elaine noted. Very dated. Those would need to be redone. The hardwood floors could be refinished, really make them shine. New windows would improve energy efficiency. They walked through every room, making lists, taking photos, calculating return on investment. When they left, Harold sat alone in the house his wife had decorated. The wallpaper she had chosen, the tiles she had picked, the fixtures she had loved. They wanted to erase all of it, make it modern, make it sell better. Make it not his anymore. That evening, he called his attorney. Martin, I need to see you. Tomorrow if possible. Is everything all right, Harold? No, but it will be. Harold had always been a watcher. Even as a young man in the Navy, he had learned that people revealed their true selves when they thought nobody was paying attention. So he paid attention. He noticed how Elaine's visits always ended with her walking through the house, mentally cataloging, appraising, planning. He noticed how Richard's questions about his health were always followed by questions about his accounts, his policies, his assets. He noticed how the grandchildren's visits were timed perfectly for social media. Golden hour lighting, carefully crafted captions, then they were gone. He noticed what they did not do. They did not ask about his dreams, his memories, his fears. They did not sit with him in comfortable silence. They did not fix the things that were actually broken, The porch railing stayed loose. The faucet still dripped. The light flickered. They performed care without actually caring. One afternoon, Harold pretended to be asleep in his chair. Elaine and Richard were in the kitchen, voices low but not low enough. "How much longer do you think?" Elaine asked. "Doctor says his heart is weak. Could be months, could be a year. We need to make sure everything is locked down before then. I do not want any surprises. Kevin says the power of attorney is solid. As long as Dad signed it while competent, we are fine." "What about the will?" Richard's voice dropped further. "I am working on it. Getting him to update the beneficiaries. Make sure everything is clear." "And Maya?" "Not a problem anymore. Dad barely talks about her." Harold kept his eyes closed, his breathing steady. His children were planning his ending like a business merger. That night, he revised his own plans. Martin Hendricks had been Harold's attorney for 42 years. They had met in the Rotary Club, became friends over shared drinks and similar values. Martin had handled Harold's will when his wife died, had helped him navigate the legal aftermath when Daniel passed. He was one of the few people Harold trusted completely. Martin arrived at the house at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. He came alone, as requested, parking down the street so his car would not be visible from the house. Harold opened the door before Martin could knock. They worked in the study for 4 hours. "I want to change everything," Harold said. Martin pulled out his legal pad. "Tell me what you want." Harold told him about the email, the sudden visits, the changed locks, the lies about Maya, the power of attorney signed under pressure. The contractors measuring his home like it was already listed. Martin took notes without judgment. "This is going to upset a lot of people," he said finally. "Good," Harold replied. "They have upset me." The new will was drafted over 3 sessions. Each time, Martin brought witnesses, professionals who could testify to Harold's state of mind. A doctor evaluated his cognitive function. Everything was documented, recorded, made legally bulletproof. The final version was finished 3 weeks before Harold's health actually began to fail. He signed it on a Tuesday evening, the same night Maya used to visit. Harold's heart, which had been quietly failing for years, finally began to give up in earnest. Not dramatically, no sudden collapse, just a gradual dimming. Less energy, more sleep, smaller meals. Elaine hired home health aides, not because Harold needed them, but because it looked good. It showed she was being responsible, the dutiful daughter. The aides were kind but unnecessary. They sat in the living room, scrolling through their phones while Harold napped. They prepared meals he did not eat. They helped him with tasks he could still manage alone. But they served their purpose. They were witnesses to Elaine's devotion. Richard visited more frequently, always with his laptop. He had taken over Harold's finances completely now, managing everything through the power of attorney. Bills were paid. Investments were monitored. Every transaction was efficient. And every transaction slowly transferred control from Harold to Richard. The grandchildren came for their photos. Melissa posted them with captions about cherishing every moment. Brandon asked one more time about investment strategies. The twins scrolled through their phones. In his last weeks, Harold grew very quiet. He stopped arguing about small things. When Elaine brought food, he ate it. When Richard made decisions, he nodded. When the grandchildren posed him for photos, he smiled. They thought it was acceptance, peace, the natural softening that comes at the end. But Harold was not softening. He was just done performing. One afternoon, 3 days before he died, he asked Elaine to leave his room. "I need to rest." "Of course, Dad." She kissed his forehead. "I will be right downstairs if you need me." When she left, Harold pulled out his phone. His fingers, swollen and stiff, slowly typed a message. It went to Maya. "I am sorry." The message showed as delivered but never read. Maya had stopped checking messages from his number weeks ago. Each one had been another small rejection, another brick in the wall. She did not know he was dying. Nobody told her. Harold Whitmore died on a Sunday morning, quietly, in his sleep, the way everyone hopes to go. Elaine found him. She called Richard first, then the funeral home, then she posted on social media. Our family has lost a pillar. Dad passed peacefully this morning surrounded by love. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. The funeral was held at First Methodist, the church Harold had attended for 50 years. The sanctuary was full. People from the Rotary Club, veterans from his Navy days, neighbors from Maple Street, teachers who remembered him volunteering at the school library years ago. Elaine gave the eulogy. She wore black Chanel and spoke about sacrifice and devotion and the special bond between father and daughter. She cried at the right moments. Her voice broke perfectly. Richard spoke about legacy and responsibility and carrying forward his father's values. He mentioned the house on Maple Street, the life Harold built, the example he set. Neither of them mentioned Maya. She sat in the back row, alone, wearing the same black dress from her father's funeral. She had found out Harold died from a neighbor, Mrs. Chen from 3 doors down, who had called to express sympathy and then realized Maya had not known. She almost did not come to the funeral. What right did she have? She had been pushed out, erased, made irrelevant. But she came anyway, not for them, for him. She listened to Elaine's performance and Richard's calculated words and felt nothing but hollowness. These people were strangers. They spoke about a man they did not know, a character they had created to serve their narrative. After the service, she left without speaking to anyone. She did not go to the reception. She just drove home and cried in her apartment for 6 hours straight. The formal reading of the will was scheduled for 2 weeks after the funeral. Maya received the notification in the mail, a formal letter from Hendricks and Associates requesting her presence. She almost threw it away. What was the point? She would get nothing. She expected nothing. Some small token, maybe. A book. A photograph. Something meaningless that Richard and Elaine had deemed unimportant enough to let her have. But something made her go. Maybe curiosity. Maybe masochism. Maybe just the need for closure. She arrived at the law office at exactly 2 p.m. The conference room was already full. Elaine sat at the head of the table, dressed like she was attending a business meeting. Black suit, pearl necklace, hair perfect. She had a leather portfolio in front of her, probably already containing plans for the house renovation. Richard sat beside her, laptop open, spreadsheet visible. He had been calculating, planning, allocating his inheritance before it was even officially his. The grandchildren filled the other chairs. Melissa scrolled through her phone. Brandon drummed his fingers on the table. The twins whispered to each other. Maya took the last empty chair, as far from the others as possible. Martin Hendricks entered, and the room went silent. He was 70 years old, white-haired, with the kind of calm authority that came from decades of delivering difficult news. Thank you all for coming. He settled into his chair, opening a thick folder. Harold was very specific about his final wishes. He spent considerable time on these documents. Elaine leaned forward slightly. Richard's fingers stilled on his laptop. I will begin with the specific bequests to Harold's children, Elaine Whitmore Carrington and Richard James Whitmore. The room held its breath. To my daughter Elaine, I leave the sum of $1 to be paid within 30 days of my death. Silence. Elaine's face went white, then red, then white again. To my son Richard, I leave the sum of $1 to be paid within 30 days of my death. Richard let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a gasp. That cannot be right. Martin continued without pause, reading directly from the document. I leave my children $1 each not because they were forgotten, but because they were remembered exactly as they chose to be. They visited me when they believed there was profit in it. They cared for me when they thought it would pay dividends. They performed devotion while calculating return on investment. I hope this dollar serves them better than my actual presence ever did. The words hung in the air like smoke. This is insane, Elaine said, her voice shaking. He was not in his right mind. We will contest this. Martin opened another folder. I anticipated that response. Harold underwent 3 separate cognitive evaluations in the final months of his life, all performed by independent medical professionals. All confirmed he was of sound mind, free from dementia or diminished capacity, and acting of his own free will. The evaluations are attached to the will. You are welcome to contest, but I assure you, you will lose. Richard was already typing on his phone. Then where is everything? Elaine demanded. The house, the investments, where is it all going? Martin turned the page. The bulk of Harold Whitmore's estate, including all financial assets, investment accounts, and liquid holdings, will be distributed to the following charitable organizations. He read the list slowly. The American Heart Association, Meals on Wheels, the Daniel Whitmore Memorial Scholarship, Fund for Children who have lost parents, the Lincoln Elementary School Library Fund, Local Veteran Support Services. Each one chosen deliberately, each one meaningful. Elaine made a sound, like all the air had left her body. Richard's face had gone completely blank. The grandchildren stared in disbelief. And to my granddaughter, Maya Elizabeth Whitmore, Martin continued, I leave my home at 42 Maple Street, including all furnishings, personal effects, and property, to be hers outright and free of any encumbrance, with no conditions or restrictions. Every head turned toward Maya. She sat frozen. The house, the Victorian with the wraparound porch and the original hardwood floors and 52 years of memories. Worth over $1.2 million. Additionally, Martin said, Harold left a personal letter for Maya. He pulled an envelope from the folder and held it across the table. Maya's hands shook as she took it. This is bullshit, Richard said, his voice tight. Complete bullshit. Harold also left letters for each of you, Martin said calmly, producing 2 more envelopes. He wanted you to understand his reasoning. Elaine snatched hers. Richard took his without looking at Martin. The reading is concluded, Martin said. The estate will be settled within 90 days. If you wish to contest, you have 30 days to file. But I remind you, the legal fees will far exceed $1, and the outcome is already determined. He stood. The meeting is adjourned. Elaine did not open her letter in the conference room. She waited until she was in her car, hands shaking so badly she could barely tear the envelope. The handwriting was her father's, shaky but clear. Elaine, you asked me once if I had thought about updating my will. I had not at the time, but your question made me start thinking. I thought about all the visits that came suddenly after years of silence. I thought about the casseroles from Mama Rosa's that you pretended to make. I thought about the contractors measuring my kitchen while I sat in the next room. I thought about how you changed my locks and kept Maya away. I thought about the lie you told me, that Maya was asking about my finances. I know that was not true. Maya never asked about money, not once in 6 years. But you did, in every visit, in every conversation. You calculated everything. You wanted my house. You can buy your own. This is not punishment. It is honesty. You performed love when you thought it would profit you. Now, you have exactly what that performance was worth. $1. I hope someday you understand what you traded away. But I doubt you will. Dad. Elaine crumpled the letter in her fist. Tears of rage streamed down her face. She called her husband. Brad, we are contesting this. We are fighting this. He was manipulated. He was sick. He was not thinking straight. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. Harold had been thinking perfectly straight. Richard opened his letter in the parking lot, still sitting in his car. Richard. 8:15 every morning. 7 minutes exactly. You optimized even your concern for me. You wanted power of attorney. You got it. You managed my finances for exactly 3 months before I died. Congratulations. You were very efficient. But you were never present. You calculated everything. The value of the house. The return on investment if I moved to assisted living. The market conditions for selling. You saw assets where you should have seen home. You saw portfolio management where you should have seen your father. I gave you power of attorney because I wanted to see what you would do with it, whether you would use it to help me or to help yourself. You helped yourself. You called Kevin Thompson before you called to ask how I was feeling. You brought contracts before you brought conversation. You were so busy planning my ending that you forgot I was still living. This dollar is all that relationship was worth, all calculation, no care. I hope it compounds for you. Dad. Richard read it twice. Then he opened his laptop and stared at the spreadsheet he had made, columns of numbers, projections, plans. All worthless now. He closed the laptop slowly. Then he drove to a bar and drank until he could not think anymore. Maya did not open the letter for 3 days. She took it home, set it on her kitchen counter, walked past it, stared at it, could not bring herself to break the seal. What could it possibly say that would matter now? Harold was gone. The relationship was gone. 6 years of Tuesdays erased by a few weeks of poison. On the third night, she finally opened it. Sat on her couch, unfolded the pages with shaking hands. My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you probably hate me a little bit. You should. I let them push you away. I let them tell lies about you. I let you believe I had turned against you. I did not for 1 second. But I needed to know for certain who they were, what they would do, how far they would go. I am sorry I used you as the test. That was not fair. You deserved better. You have always deserved better. Your father raised you right. Daniel was my son, but he was also my teacher. He taught me what real strength looked like. Not loud, not demanding, just steady, just showing up, just loving without keeping score. When he died, I saw that same strength in you. 17 years old and you could have crumbled. Instead, you studied. You worked. You became a teacher, which is the hardest and most important job there is. You chose a life of giving. And then you gave to me, not because you had to, not because you wanted something, just because you loved me. 6 years of Tuesdays. 6 years of fixed faucets and refilled pill organizers and conversations that had no agenda. You never asked for anything. You never even hinted at wanting anything. You just showed up. When the others came with their casseroles and their calculations, I watched them. I let them perform. I let them believe they were winning. But I knew the difference. I knew the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves what you can give them. Elaine brought food she did not make. You brought your time. Richard brought contracts. You brought conversation. They brought performance. You brought presence. This house is not payment. You never asked to be paid. This house is simply the only thing I have left that still feels like love. Your grandmother and I bought this house when we were young and stupid, and so in love we could barely think straight. We brought our Bobbies home here. We celebrated every Christmas here. We cried here. We laughed here. We built a life here. I want you to build a life here too. Fill it with students who need tutoring, with friends who need feeding, with love that does not calculate its value. Make it loud, make it messy, make it real. That is all I ever wanted it to be. You do not owe me gratitude. You do not owe me anything. But if you want to honor my memory, just keep being exactly who you are. Present when it is inconvenient. Honest when everyone else is performing. Real when the whole world is fake. That is the only legacy that matters. I am sorry I could not tell you this before I left. I am sorry you had to feel abandoned. I am sorry for every moment you thought I had stopped loving you. I never did. Not for 1 second. Thank you for 6 years of Tuesdays. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for loving an old man who had nothing left to offer but stories and time. You made my final years feel like living instead of waiting. All my love always. Grandpa Harold. Maya read the letter 4 times. Then she drove to Maple Street. She had not been inside since the locks were changed. She stood on the porch for a long time, key in hand. Martin had given her the new key at the reading along with the deed. Free and clear. No mortgage, no conditions. Just hers. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house smelled like Harold, like old books and butterscotch candies and the lavender soap he always used. The grandfather clock still ticked in the hallway. His reading glasses sat on the side table. His favorite mug still in the dish rack. She walked through slowly, touching things. The walls, the furniture, the memories. In the study, she found more letters. Dozens of them, filed in a folder labeled for Maya when I am gone. Letters he had written over the final months, some dated, some not, all addressed to her. She read them sitting in his chair. He wrote about her father, about memories she had never heard, about how proud Daniel would be of the woman she had become. He wrote about her grandmother, about the life they had built in this house, about how he wished Maya could have known her better. He wrote about regret, about focusing too much on work when his kids were young, about missing moments he could not get back. He wrote about love, real love, the kind that shows up without announcement, the kind that fixes faucets and listens to stories and does not need to be thanked. The kind Maya had shown him. In the last letter, dated 3 days before his death, he wrote, "I am tired now. My body is giving up and I am letting it. I am not afraid. I am ready. But I want you to know that these last 6 years, the years you gave me, were the best of my long life. Not because of anything we did, just because I felt seen. You saw me, Maya. When everyone else was looking through me or past me or at what I could give them, you saw me. That is the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. You made an old man feel like he still mattered. Live well, love hard, keep showing up. That is all I ask." Maya folded the letter carefully, added it back to the stack, and sat in the quiet house. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the walls the same gold she remembered from childhood visits with her father. The grandfather clock chimed. 7 times. She was home. Maya moved into the house slowly. She kept most of Harold's furniture, the chair he read in, the dining table where they had eaten sandwiches, the clock that marked time. She brought her own things too, her books, her teacher's supplies, the photographs of her father. She did exactly what Harold had asked. She filled the house with purpose. 3 afternoons a week, students came for tutoring. Kids from Lincoln Elementary who needed help with reading or math or just needed a safe, quiet place to exist. She set up the dining room as a homework space, stocked it with supplies and snacks and encouragement. Once a month, she hosted dinners, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad and whoever needed company, other teachers, elderly neighbors, friends going through divorces or job losses or just lonely stretches. The house became warm again, lived in, loved. Elaine never spoke to her again. The contest lasted 6 weeks. 3 lawyers reviewed the will. All 3 confirmed it was ironclad. Elaine withdrew her challenge and moved to Arizona. She sold her own house, bought something smaller, and cut off contact with most of the family. Melissa still posted on social media but never mentioned her grandfather again. The photos were deleted. The tributes disappeared, as though he had never existed. Richard moved to Seattle for a job opportunity, or maybe to escape the reminder of what he had lost. He sent Maya one email 3 months after the reading. "I hope you're happy." That was all it said. She did not respond. The twins graduated high school and went to different colleges. Maya sent them cards. They were never acknowledged. Brandon dropped out of college and started a cryptocurrency business that collapsed within a year. He called Maya once, asking if she could loan him money. She said no. The family fractured completely. And Maya built a new family in the house on Maple Street, not by blood, by choice, by showing up. 1 year later. One Tuesday evening, exactly 1 year after Harold's death, Maya sat on the porch with a cup of tea. She had spent the day teaching, then tutoring, then hosting dinner for 6 people, including Mrs. Chen from down the street and 2 new teachers who had just moved to town. The house was quiet now, Clean dishes in the rack, leftover pasta in containers, the warm feeling that comes from feeding people who needed feeding. She thought about Harold, about his final letter, about the gift he had given her. Not the house, though the house mattered. The permission to live honestly, to love without keeping score, to show up without expecting anything back. She thought about Elaine and Richard, about how completely they had misunderstood what mattered. How they had traded relationship for calculation and ended up with neither. She did not hate them, she felt sorry for them. They would spend the rest of their lives believing they had been cheated, that Maya had manipulated, that Harold had been unfair. They would never understand that they had cheated themselves. That the real inheritance, the one that actually mattered, had been available the whole time. Presence, connection, love. You could not buy that, could not calculate it, could not optimize it. You just had to show up. Again and again and again. With no script, no audience, no expectation of reward. Just the quiet, revolutionary act of caring. Inside the house, the grandfather clock chimed. 8 times. Maya smiled, finished her tea, and watched the stars appear. Somewhere, she thought, Harold was smiling too. Not because she had inherited his house, but because she had inherited something far more valuable. The understanding that love is measured in Tuesdays. In fixed faucets and refilled pill organizers. In showing up when it is inconvenient. In seeing people when they feel invisible. In staying when everyone else has calculated their exit. That was Harold's real legacy. And Maya would spend the rest of her life honoring it. One Tuesday at a time.